Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Morrison. I'm the product marketing manager here at Zitadel. And today we're going to sit here with Florian, Zitadel CEO. How are we doing this morning, Florian?
Hey, Jim, thank you for having me. I'm really doing great today, even though the weather is a little gray here, but all other sides, it's really nice.
Hey, we'll take weather where we can get it. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Florian.
Yeah, so I'm kind of the CEO that actually should be a CTO at one point in his life, but so it takes a little bit experience in building a company, which I severely lacked until like a few years back, I would say. But at heart, CTO, but running the company more from a CEO's perspective, because the vision I have in my brain, I think, is what does the job here. And sometimes I can be appealing and sometimes not. So I would say that's the answer there.
I think that can be a fair statement for us all.
Yeah, true that.
Can you share with us your experience in starting Zitadel?
I mean, before we started building Zitadel, part of the team behind Zitadel, because we have grown since then quite a lot, worked in a public sector company, and we had the hunch that something's off in identity, especially around self-hosting, multi-tenancy, which were really bad at that point in time. And that gave us the hunch of, hey, why has nobody built like the, let's say, GitLab for identity or like Grafana for identity? So that platformization with a developer focus hasn't happened in our space, to my taste. And that's what we're actually working on silently and just chugging along as we go here.
I love it. Identified a market opportunity and went there to bring it to the developer community.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here. And I mean, that's why we made a lot of design choices as they are right now. And I think we're just learning more through a process and just making it better for each and everybody.
Excellent. So what does a day in a life as Zitadel CEO look like?
Well, depends a little bit on where I'm stuck off the world. If I'm in Switzerland, I typically can just start working on the day and just ease it in. My mailbox does not look too severely plagued at that moment. But I realized when I'm over there at the West Coast, my day starts with 100+ notifications. I can just go through them. So I would say typically it's just me doing a little triage in the morning to figure out what's going on, where my attention is needed. And then I walk through my calendar. And I still spend quite some time in the community and on GitHub to just have a good bearing on what's going on. But I would say cranking through all these notifications, getting a bearing is where my day really starts. And then, I think I have some engagements with my kids as well from time to time because I have two younger kids that Nick take care of. I also have a wife, though, that's not too much problem there, but nonetheless, it takes a little time sometimes. And I think the day wraps, quite late for me sometimes, like 10 in the evening in Switzerland, because the West Coast time overlap sometimes makes the day a little bit stretched out. But besides that, I still really like it, especially engaging with so many great people in different channels. I mean, we have the Discord server still going, and that's going great to my taste. GitHub is still quite active, and I can write my messages there as well. I typically also invest quite a lot of time meeting customers, and that's also really important here.
I love it. I love it that you're still active in the day-to-day operations. Whether it's an overlap with myself or with others within the team, you always seem to make the time. So it's something that we definitely appreciate. And the fact that you're still actively involved in our developer community really makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge there is to become jack of no trades, right? So I think that's what the CEO becomes at one point anyways. It's just in understanding everything, but specializing nothing. And it nags a little bit on my spirit there, but I think that's what should be the goal here.
Can you share with us some of the common challenges and pitfalls of the identity and access management space that many face?
I think a lot of people sometimes either overestimate or underestimate what identity in general is. Like, one can say, well, it's just sort of a login, right? It's just two input fields and a button. Yeah, you can look at it that way, but on the other end of the spectrum, it's just something that really influences the security of your software and your landscape if you do it wrong. So I think that the big challenges and pitfalls there are really just estimating the right risks and doing the right things to give your users and your customers the right amount of security there. And since we build tool for that spectrum, right? I'm not the one doing it. I don't want to sound it like fear mongering and stuff, but still there is a lot of things that you can do wrong, like just picking the right password hashing algorithm, for example, and configuring it correctly is a thing that you need to invest time. And it's not like a one-day job. You need to do it over and over and over again as the risk landscape changes, right? And so I think there needs to be a lot of awareness on the subject when you work on it. And I think that's the biggest pitfall. It's not a one-day job. It's really a continuous battle on doing the right thing. And that's why I think it's better to use a framework or service that has specialized knowledge for a certain job than building in that thing on your own. I mean, I can also state we as a company, we're not going to build a database anytime soon, because I don't think that's a good spending on of our time budget to do something, because there's clearly people who do that better than we are. But on also, I would say we do identity well, so you can also trust us, and we do a lot of things in transparency there. So I think that's one of the big pitfalls and challenges for each and everybody here.
Wow. So recognizing that that can be a challenge for somebody that's just coming into the space or looking for identity provider, what would you say Zitadel's unique advantages in the marketplace?
I think what makes us really great here is we have a developer focus, and I think a lot of tools in the past lacked a little bit on that end. But we're also appealing more on the platform end of the spectrum. Like, we're not a point solution that only does one thing. We're more like an infrastructure tool that can be used in multiple way or forms. So I think the combination of us having a multi-tenant model, which you can use in multiple forms, that appeals to B2B scenarios, for example, or OEM scenarios where you want to have some branding capabilities, is something that makes us great. Our developer focus is something that makes us great, and our modern architecture that allows easy self-hosting as well, because that's where we have seen quite a lot of movement in over the last few years here that gets more attraction at this point in time. So I think these are the main things that are really important here.
Excellent. Could you expand on multi-tenancy and how that might factor in a customer's decision when choosing Zitadel?
Yeah, I think the thing that many people underestimate in multi-tenancy settings is that actually most cases in the internet, as I would put them, are multi-tenant by nature. Because if I'm building a web shop, for example, I typically have two stakeholders already. It's like I have my customers and I have my employees. And I don't want to apply the same set of rules across both parties. And from there on out, it just gets on. Like, at one point, I have business customers. At one point, I might have partners that bring in stuff to my shop as well. So it gets just worse and worse and worse. And I think one should really think of how to build that multi-tenancy part into the core architecture, because you want to have capabilities based on per tenant decisions. Like, for my employees, I want to enforce 2FA. For my customers, I maybe don't want to enforce it. Maybe I want to enforce it. So just the amount of configuration options you need to have per tenant is what will eventually break down the velocity of an in-house development team, because there's just so many permutations. I mean, even Azure AD, nowadays called Entra ID, two tenants do not necessarily look the same. So you need a way to even adopt to that as well. And so it just gets worse and worse and worse. And that's what we thought, hey, let's build a multi-tenant framework that really can be configured on a per tenant basis to get rid of that problem and that plumbing work essentially. Yeah.
That resonates, definitely. So that provides an organization a certain flexibility as they approach their space. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can create users in tenants. You can apply policies to tenants. You can set up single sign-on connections per tenants and access rights. So there is as many things what a tenant can define, and that just makes it super flexible for scenarios like B2B, for example.
Excellent. Could you describe what data residency means to Citadel and how we can help enable others with that?
I think that there's two big dimensions there. One is we have clearly seen more demand for having data in certain regions or residency places, can also be like legal places. And the one dimension to look at it is like our cloud service, for example, already provides 4 locations to pick. It can be US, it can be Australia, it can be EU, and it can be Switzerland, because we just know that different customers have different requirements there. And hence we as a company are fully committed on keeping and getting our customers a good amount of choices there. And if something's missing, we're always happy to add something there. I think currently we don't have a good basis in Asia, but that might change over the course of time here. And the other component there is really like, okay, data residency can also be looked after by having capabilities to self-host Citadel then, right? Because that gives you ultimate flexibility. Because if I, as a customer, can decide where my database is and where my Citadel is hosted and who has access to it, I get ultimate control over it. And I think with the recent shift in the industries of more people wanting to self-host again, out of the exact reason that they get full control over data stays and is processed, actually, I think there's Citadel really a great tool for that job, because you can pick it, you can give it the Postgres somewhere and just slam it on AWS, slam it on your VMware cluster, give you the Kubernetes cluster, and we just happily do the job for you, right? And so that's the 2 dimensions in data residency I see are both clearly work for us, yeah.
Very good. Do you feel that that plays well with the trend in market today, where a lot of customers that are approaching identity are migrating away from cloud offerings more to self-hosted options? Could you describe that a little bit?
I think that there's multiple reasons, right? I think data breaches we saw in the past from third-party suppliers have been certainly a problem there. Another thing is typically customers do not want us as a company who builds the software access data, because it gives them a little bit more, let's say, defensive capabilities there, because they can cut off any external access quite easily that way. And also an element that adds in there, I think, is that people get more comfortable by running critical workload again. Like the saying that, yeah, you need to use a cloud service for critical workload, I think has gone since Kubernetes and other things came around, and people are clearly comfortable running critical workload again on their own. And I think that's a great sign there. And all in all, I would say the market motion appeals to solutions like us and GitLab and Grafana, because you have the flexibility to pick and choose. You don't need to, but you can. And if you want to have ultimate security, you need to eat the extra people cost that you have to operate such a critical service then, right? But it gets the job done perfectly.
Very good. Wow. So thinking about some recent changes we've had at Citadel, one of those changes is we went through a licensing update. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, we started Citadel with an Apache 2 license, and that has really served us well and gave us a good distribution, I would say good trust in the community, and has served us really well. The thing we have encountered though in the recent, let's say 12, 18 months, is that we more and more were stuck in a scenario where we saw people are using Citadel, but not contributing back to it in a meaningful way. And what I mean by contributing back is it can either be you contribute your time and help us create a better platform, or you can spend money on us for us doing that job for you. So, but it's either way, we would love that people interact with Citadel and help us make it better. And hence, we have chosen to relicense under an HGPL license, because it felt like the natural move to protect the investment from us and the community, because the community can still access all the bells and whistles of Citadel without any limitations. Besides, hey, if you change it, you need to give it back to the project. And for me, that feels like a proper move to really commit on open source, because we're not in a mood of switching to something like a BSL license or whatever weird license that there is around, because that would be like a rug pull to the community. So in hindsight, I would say HGPL could have even been the license to start with. But I mean, that's a learning experience from our end, I would say.
No, that's great feedback on that. Thank you. You know, as we look here to the future, it sounds like we have some amazing plans set for 2025. Can you kind of go into what we have set for this year and beyond?
I always think Citadel has more to it than just a login, right? I even though joke sometimes, yeah, it's a glorified login. Yeah, that's what it is. And it has multi-tenancy and all these things. But the mission of us as a company goes beyond that. And there is three main, let's say, pillars that I'm interested in solving. One is the transactional part of identity, meaning giving access, creating users, creating tenants, deleting or authenticating people and authenticating machines. So that's just the transactional nature of business. I think we have like 80% coverage there. So we're quite well set up there. But the second pillar that's kind of important here is integrations and workflows. What I mean by that is we definitely want to give, and we already give developers capabilities like, hey, you want to create a Salesforce plugin? Yeah, go there. There's actions, you can build stuff and you can augment Citadel's behaviors to your needs. Or, hey, you want to build a Datadog integration? Yeah, okay, there is an API, go make it work. So that whole extensibility and workflow piece is super important because it makes up for a great developer flexibility in my mind. And the third piece, which is the biggest one on the long haul here, will be all subjects related to analytics. But that breaks down again in three pieces. It's audit and forensics use cases that we want to give our customers the options to see what a user is doing. And then also aggregations like, hey, what is the identity infrastructure tool doing? Do you have happy users because they can log in? Do you have many failed attempts? We want to give you something back to visualize the data essentially. And the third big pillar there will definitely be centered around threat intelligence and threat mitigations, because we collect a lot of valid and high quality data there already. Why don't we make that work for you? Like, hey, we can send you an alert if something looks weird based on the user's past history. And I think what we really should do there is ingest more data based on what the user is doing. So we could even go so far and ingest access logs, like, hey, a user accessed file XYZ, because that's clearly more valuable to our customers than just dumping everything into a log collector. And then, yeah, if something breaks, you need to figure out, hey, what's going wrong? Why don't we just provide that super insightful picture from the identities perspective? Like, hey, that's the identity. That identity has done these things. Or, hey, I want to see what the service is. Can you expand who has used that service? Is more insightful to the security teams of the story than just plain logging, right? And so I want to build that, let's say, polyglot identity platform that appeals to multiple stakeholders there essentially. Yeah, that's why I call it sometimes GitLab for identity, even though I hate that term, but I sometimes still use it.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that. I mean, we have an exciting road ahead, so the future looks bright.
Oh yeah.
So we recently set up a headquarters in the US. Can you speak to that for a moment?
Sure. I mean, the company started as a limited company out of Switzerland. That's just because the original team who started working here has strong Swiss roots. So I think that's how we can put it there. But over the course of time, we realized that to appeal to the North American market, we also should have a presence in the States. And hence we set ahead and created a US entity as well for Citadel, which is now like, yeah, we still have a lot of people, let's say, hired in Europe through the Swiss entity. And we play to that market through that vehicle. But also we took the flexibility then to the States to have a legal entity there as well, to also hire people there more easily, and also to better appeal to customer in that industry's part as well. Because the North American market, and especially the US, is still super interesting to us from a market size perspective. And also, I mean, what we can clearly point out here is, let's say, technical startups and technical companies of them exist quite a lot in the US. In Europe, we typically see more bigger enterprises that have different needs. So we wanted to make everybody comfortable with what we can offer as a company, even from a cultural and billing standpoint. So that's the bottom line there, essentially.
I love that. That's a thoughtful approach. So wrapping up here, off-topic question. If you weren't in tech today, what is another space that you could see yourself operating in?
All right. There was multiple. I mean, it ranges from, at one point in my life, I wanted to become a helicopter pilot. I ditched that because nowadays it's a little bit a glorified bus driver, even though I still like mechanics around helicopters. So I'm full on for that, but it's a glorified job. You drive something or fly something from A to B. That's what you do. So yeah, that lost a little bit of the appeal there. Since I'm now close to turning 40, I also got rid of my, hey, I want to work in close protection industries. Like some people call it bodyguard, but at one point after my military career, I really thought I should go down that route. I got rid of that as well once I realized the risk profile. I mean, it is naturally super high. I mean, that was clear from the get-go, but yeah, once you get family and things, you change some of the aspects in your life. So I think the option number 3 that I'm looking mostly into nowadays is like, why don't I create citrus fruits? I think citrus fruits are super interesting. So agriculture, I know it's a weird space. Agriculture would be interesting to me nowadays, because I think with a little bit more data and a little bit more thoughtful approach, we could actually create quite a lot of interesting concepts in that space. So that's why I would say citrus fruits.
Well, I'm always a fan of orange juice, so I won't knock that one bit. But I'm glad that we have you piloting Zitadel. So
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for the fireside chat today. I really do appreciate it. For those watching today, be sure to join our Discord community. It's going to be down in the description below. We'd love to have you a part of our community. And if you have any questions, technical or anything else in between, be sure to let us know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day.